Let's look at the dog culture through the case of this Mike Rowe guy. Dog culture with celebrities. It kind of seems like these celebrities are just simps for the dog culture, but there's a lot more going to it than this. You know, Mike Rowe has built his brand and done all this work, and then he kind of plays simp to the dog culture. But there's something else going on here too. Society does not incentivize celebrities to actually speak out. So let's go over here to this video called Examining Rising Deaths. This has to do with vaccines, and Mike Rowe has some points.
Society is moving toward people not having personal responsibility for their behavior, for their choices, for their safety. There's a great Wordsworth poem that he said, "In ourselves our safety must be sought, by our own right hand it must be wrought."
So this guy's talking about personal accountability. And this makes me think about Mike when that guy allowed the dog to attack him. There's no personal accountability for the dog owner. Yet here's Mike acting, so impressed with this idea of personal accountability. Yet when it comes to the dog culture, this guy Mike was bitten by a dog, and he did this whole write up of oh, I let the dog bite me, I'm a good person. And hundreds of comments agree with Mike, and so you're pushing this thing out there of it's okay to just be a jackass dog owner and bite people because Mike Rowe says it's good. So if your neighbor or just some random person gets bitten by your dog, the attitude in society, it's going to be like, well, Mike Rowe has so much compassion, he lets himself get bitten by a dog. So there is no personal accountability for dog owners. Let's go to another little timestamp. I'll share just a few of these with you.
Of course, grown-ups. Yeah. And so you brought it up, and the governments don't do that because governments are in the total business of we'll take care of it. We protect you in every regard.
It's the infantilizing
of course. Grown-ups. Yeah. And so you
Well, that's Mike. He acts like a little infant. He acts like a little helpless baby. The dog bites him, and then he does this long write up about it. Like, look at me, I'm a good person. And it's so crazy the way that Mike acts. He acts like he's such an ally for the working man, the chainsaw toting, the firefighter. All of those dirty job personas. But when it comes down to it, Mike had a perfect chance to put out so much truth about dog ownership that he didn't do it. And notice that the title of this video is Rising Death. Dog attacks are on the rise. And you want to talk about rising death, start looking at all these dog bites and sepsis and other problems. Not to mention veterinary suicide. Let's go to another timestamp here. So this is where the host reads this quote to Mike. And Mike is so
I know the quote.
Impressed.
I know
he knows it. Look at him.
I know what you're gonna say. How great this is. If we are not able to ask skeptical questions or to interrogate those who tell us that something is true, to be skeptical of those in authority, then we're up for grabs for the next charlatan, political or religious, who comes along. It wasn't enough, Jefferson said, to enshrine some rights in a constitution or a Bill of Rights. This is the punchline. The people had to be educated and they had to practice their skepticism. Otherwise, we don't run the government runs us. And that is where we're living right now. The fact.
Look at how Mike just kind of worships that whole statement. It's about education and skepticism. When it comes to dog ownership and all the nasty stuff about dog owners and the attacks and just everything, they don't put any type of warning label on it. And Mike is going to babble on about that later on. I'll leave that out of it. You can watch this on your own. But think about that. Education and skepticism. When it comes to Mike making this long post about his leg getting bit by the dog, no one is allowed to be a skeptic. No one is allowed to say, wait a minute. You need to get that checked out. You need to report that as a dog bite. You need to get that owner to get that dog under control because you got bit right on your leg, right by where these toddlers get bit all the time. So, as much as he thinks education and skepticism is a good thing, is it really? It just seems like this is his brand. So, speaking of like the education part of this,
Sees the package insert. Right? You go to a pharmacy and they give you the injection. Right. Nobody says, would you like to see the package insert before you make this decision?
And we weren't coming out of.
yeah, the package insert. When people get dogs, they're not educated about the expense. They're not educated about the stink, the odor, the cost, the vet bills. They're not educated about all the depression when the dog is sick or gets hurt or when you run out of money or all the time it's going to take away from your fellow humans. So here is Mike Rowe talking about the package insert of vaccines. Like, we got to educate people on stuff and having this whole attitude. But does he really have this attitude?
A time when people were reading the fine print. People were desperate for an authoritative figure to give them the truth. And what they.
Yeah, interesting, Mike. Talking about authoritative figure to give them the truth. This is what Mike does. Mike has a huge following, and he makes this post about, look at me, I was bit by a dog. I really feel like he's just cosplaying as somebody that got bit by a dog. Let's go back to the whole thing with the dirty jobs. He's just cosplaying as a freaking construction worker. You know? Like, look at me, I did all the tough stuff. I squirmed around in the chicken shit and swung my hammer. He's just cosplaying as a dog bite victim to get attention. This actually perfectly fits the pattern of everything about Mike Rowe's career. He's playing the lowly, hardworking guy that got bit by a dog, but he's such a good person, he's going to let the whole thing go. You know, meanwhile, more and more toddlers and infants are being killed by pit bulls right there in California where he freaking lives. And he's not going to mention that. He's not even going to wipe the blood off of it. This is all like a stage actor thing. So when he talks about an authoritative figure to give them the truth, that's what he's doing here. What he's saying here is, the truth is that dog bites just aren't a big deal. Just don't worry about it, man. You know, I'm just like y'all. I got bit by a dog too. Yeah, and you have millions of dollars and probably a lawyer and a doctor on standby to get you all stitched up and pumped full of antibiotics. But most little kids and single moms and stuff that get their lives torn up by these dogs, they don't have that. So the whole point about the authoritative figure is a very interesting one. Let me show you this little go and learn part.
Beads and he shakes it and he scares you and you listen and nobody says go and learn, right? Everybody wants you to listen to authority, be it the chief of the village or the king or the president.
Yeah, go and learn. There's so much you can learn about dog ownership. So much of the advertising and the fluff and everything about dog ownership, it's just bullshit. It's absolute bullshit, and we have the receipts for it. But here's Mike pushing dog ownership while he pushes also this whole thing of, yeah, safety, take care of each other, personal responsibility, and go and learn. Okay, enough of that one. Have a look at that one on your own if you got a few minutes. So now I want to just show you another little quote from Mike Rowe.
I think Americans, like the Chinese, are human. And I think when you give humans a choice, when you give humans an easy button, they'll hit it. I will. You know, I talk.
Yeah, it's easier for you to cosplay as a dog attack survivor than it is for you to put out some solid information and do some research, isn't it?
I talk a lot about this with my foundation. We offer work ethic scholarships because we believe that the fault in our stars is a certain kind of inaction.
The fault in your stars is a certain type of inaction. That's you, Mike. Inaction. Cosplaying as somebody that's been bit by a dog, while hundreds and hundreds of dog attacks happen right there in your state, but you're over there with a little bite on your leg. Yeah.
You know, we need to be encouraged to do the hard thing, the difficult thing. We need to be suspicious of the easy thing.
Yeah, well, we need to be suspicious of Mike Rowe doing the easy thing. Right, Mike? So now I want to show you Mike Rowe's sweat pledge. Number 3, there's no such thing as a bad job. I believe that all jobs are opportunities, and it's up to me to make the best of them. Well, Mike, have you heard about veterinary suicide? Have you heard about groomer's lung? These are ailments that affect women more than men, and the job of veterinarian has a high suicide rate. So, are you telling those people that are watching their workers commit suicide and having thoughts of committing suicide and committing suicide that they just need to work harder? They just need to swing the axe harder. Take care of more dogs. Just put their emotions down at the bottom of the. You see this sweat pledge with Mike. It doesn't make any sense, and his participation in dog culture also goes against his own sweat pledge. Number 4, I don't follow my passion. It brings it with me. Well, veterinarians, for example, that's their passion. They wanted to take care of animals. Then they go into the veterinary industry and they get treated like crap. And then they have suicide thoughts. And then they go in debt, and it's terrible. So you're telling them that they need to leave that passion at home and just forget about it, just freaking work harder, so the more people can have the dogs that you promote ownership of. Number 5, he talks about debt. This directly applies to dog culture too. And number 6, my safety is my responsibility. Come on, dude. Yeah, you don't promote taking care of your own safety around dogs. But since we're talking about veterinarian jobs, let's go look at some information. Mike Rowe talks about debt. Veterinarians suffer a lot of debt. I got a few playlists that I'll share with everybody about this. One of them is this one right here, called Leaving the Vet Industry. Women leaving the vet industry. It's stories of how they take their passion to work. They're passionate about taking care of these dogs that Mike Rowe loves. He loves them so much he'll allow them to attack him. And their lives are shattered by all of the debt that Mike Rowe hates. The lives of them are shattered by the suicide of the vet industry. Another playlist I'll add for everybody is this one right here, veterinary suicide. Mike's attitude and the way that Mike pushes out dog ownership, and other celebrities like himself, you guys are pushing this. You're making all these people have crappy lives, sit there breathing pet dander all day, getting, having a terrible life at their job. And so many jobs, we don't even have to look at the veterinarians. You can look at postal workers, shelter workers are constantly being mauled, animal shelter workers. And you're going to tell me, Mike Rowe is going to tell us that we need to take care of our own safety. Well, are you going to issue these people that are working in the shelter, these postal workers, these people that work in the veterinary clinics that get their faces and arms shredded by dogs? You're going to tell them that that's their fault? They need to figure out their own safety? No. We as a society have a little bit of freaking responsibility for filling it with these sick, nasty dogs that tear people up on a daily basis. I mean, on some level, I do kind of agree with Mike Rowe. We are responsible for our own safety. But the problem is society hides dog culture so much that it doesn't allow people to take care of themselves. Like dog sitters. Dog sitters suffer some of the absolute worst, nasty, lifelong stress and anxiety and disfigurement from dogs. Same thing with senior citizens. Yet, do we promote these people to own stun guns or firearms or batons or other types of things to keep themselves safe? No, we don't. So there's a big problem here, and Mike Rowe, with all of his talk and all of his pretending to be all about the lowly citizen, look at me with my dog bite. Oh, you're not helping anybody. And I think this is just where all the celebrities are. They're just like trapped in the dog cult. They've built up their persona. They've built up their brand as, hey, I'm one of the hardworking dudes like everybody else. And they cannot mention any truth about dog culture, or that will all be lost, because that's where our society is right now. Even a normal average Joe, it's hard for you to speak the truth about dog culture, or what will happen? You'll get, cast away, as we all know. So that's been a look at Mike Rowe and some of his stuff. Hope you guys like it. This really isn't a dig on Mike Rowe. This is more of an invite for people to look deeper at how this dog culture is just so deep into everything we do every day. See you guys later.